Hello, everyone. Welcome to Court with Krissy. This scumbag is going back to where he belongs, and that's prison. Just wait for Judge Mertz to talk. It's going to go downhill. Like an ape, Court with Krissy is now in session.
Mr. Farron, did you have an adequate opportunity to talk to Mr. Gurmurthy about that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Gurmurthy, are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to that report?
No, sir.
Are there any challenges to the scoring of the guy?
No, sir.
Do people have any additions, deletions, or corrections?
No, Your Honor.
Well, the agreement is that Mr. Farron is going to plead no contest to head count 5, counts 1 through 4, including the habitual fourth offender notice will be dismissed. And I think it'll be a no contest, but you have a copy of the report to rely on. Yeah.
Challenges to the scoring?
No, Your Honor.
I don't see anybody in the Zoom waiting room. Did you have anybody here in the courtroom?
Yeah, she's here. She is present today in the courtroom. We thought she was going to come on Zoom.
Say she, can you tell me?
Tammy.
Okay. Pam, if you'd like to come forward, did you want to make a statement here today? You're the victim's mother, is that correct?
Yes, and legal guardian.
Okay. Thank you.
So my name is Tammy Camprath. I am Tiffany's mother and legal guardian, and thank you for the opportunity to describe the impact Wayne Farron has had on Tiffany's life, on mine, and on my family. Tiffany is a developmentally disabled adult. Her disability and psychological evaluations are documented in the court record, and she is considered a vulnerable adult. Wayne's grandmother lived across the street from where Tiffany and I lived while she was growing up, so we were familiar with the family. After Tiffany began attending a new church, I accompanied her one Sunday. Wayne and his mother were there, and I overheard him tell Tiffany that they should get together. I immediately warned her against that because he was on parole and I was aware of his criminal history. Without my knowledge, Wayne later contacted Tiffany, and within 30 days, they were secretly married. I learned of the marriage only because Tiffany shared the news with members of her community mental health peer support group, who then informed me. From that point on, our lives were thrown into chaos for more than a year. Instead of being able to focus on protecting my daughter, I found myself struggling to navigate multiple agencies and a legal system that often seems unable or unwilling to act. As Tiffany's legal guardian, I repeatedly tried to exercise my legal authority to protect her, yet I encountered obstacle after obstacle. I struggled to get law enforcement, parole officials, and other agencies to recognize the urgency of the situation. It was not until an attorney became involved that meaningful actions were finally taken. We then endured police interviews, meetings with attorneys, court proceedings, and a lot of paperwork. Looking back, even investigators acknowledged that the way this case was handled was deeply troubling, and I have since received an apology regarding how the situation unfolded. While that acknowledgement is appreciated, it does not erase the fear, the frustration, and emotional exhaustion our family endured during that year. Wayne had multiple opportunities to make different choices. A pastor refused to marry them, yet Wayne ignored that guidance. He also had the opportunity to speak with me directly, but instead chose to lock me out of Tiffany's home while he, his mother, and Tiffany remained inside on Christmas Day. Knowing he was on parole and aware of his criminal history, I feared for Tiffany's safety as well as my own. During the brief time they were married, Wayne disrupted Tiffany's bridge card benefits, leaving her without those essential funds for several months until I was finally able to resolve the issue with the Department of Health and Human Services. He also contacted the probate court seeking information about revoking my guardianship and persuaded Tiffany to purchase a phone she did not need. That phone ultimately became evidence in this case. To date, she has spent more than $1,000 on that phone and still does not have possession of it. Although the marriage was annulled, Wayne appealed the annulment, requiring me to spend additional time communicating with the Court of Appeals and seeking legal advice. His continued efforts have prolonged this ordeal and prevented our family from moving forward. Wayne also introduced Tiffany to marijuana products. She is now struggling to stop using marijuana gummies that she began taking because of the stress of this situation. Those gummies are now having adverse effects on her health, and her family physician is aware of the situation. Since this ordeal began, Tiffany has experienced increased fear, anxiety, and emotional distress. She suffered suicidal thoughts while anticipating having to testify in court and has required increased psychological support. Although she is working hard to recover, Wayne has made that difficult. Even while incarcerated, he continued attempting to contact her from jail, preventing her from finding peace and causing her ongoing fear. Wayne's continued persistence is one of my greatest concerns. I genuinely fear that his attempts to involve himself in Tiffany's life will continue after sentencing. In fact, I have been advised to renew a personal protection order before a sentencing hearing because of the concern that this behavior may continue. His repeated attempts to contact Tiffany, even while incarcerated, make it difficult for me to believe that this conduct will end without firm intervention from the court. I do not speak from hatred. I recognize that Wayne may have a history of harmful choices or personal struggles, but those circumstances do not excuse exploiting a vulnerable adult. Accountability is necessary because his actions have caused significant and lasting harm. As Tiffany's mother and legal guardian, my responsibility is to protect her. I will do everything I can to support her healing and ensure her safety. I respectfully ask the court to impose a sentence that reflects the seriousness of this crime, the lasting impact it has had on Tiffany and our family, and the continuing fear caused by Wayne's actions and persistent efforts to remain involved in her life. I also ask the court to help protect Tiffany and other vulnerable adults from future harm. Thank you for your consideration.
So, do you have anybody else that wants to address the court today?
No, Your Honor.
Anything on your behalf? I'm sorry, on behalf of people.
Yeah. This case was difficult, primarily because Tiffany struggled and the court can see, based on what her mother talked about today, that she was really struggling with going to trial. So to the extent that Wayne Farron at the very end did take some responsibility for this, it did save her a lot of stress. She was very upset about having to testify. She did come into our office voluntarily at the end and tell us that Wayne was contacting her repeatedly from the jail. I didn't hear that myself. She was really vulnerable. She is older, and the defense was that essentially she was able to get into other relationships and they were going to try to bring those people in and say that she could consent. She quite clearly couldn't under the statute. I think the recommendation for an MDOC sentence is appropriate at the high end of the recommendation or the guidelines. Mr. Farron has a long history of victimizing people. In fact, we have another case sitting on our desk today for a pretty brutal assault that happened in the jail. We just got the information on it yesterday, the cameras. He made these choices. He knew she was vulnerable. And I suppose he could have argued at the beginning that he didn't know she was vulnerable, but certainly throughout the case, he learned it and continued his behaviors. Tiffany really struggled with all of this. She struggled with her relationship with all the people in her life as a result of Mr. Farron's actions. And I think that it's appropriate to sentence him to MDOC. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gerber, thank you.
Yes.
Motion, please. Mr. Gerber, anything you wanted to say on behalf of your client?
Judge, I would ask if the court hear from Mr. Farron first, and I'll just fill in the last little bit. He's got a lot more to say. I think that would make more sense, and I'll just have the court rely on the sentencing memorandum primarily with what I would have otherwise said. But I'll just cover up what Mr. Farron does, and if that's okay.
All right, thank you, Mr. Farron.
Thank you.
Mr. Gerber, thank you.
Yes.
Motion, please.
Yes.
I understand, I'm probably gonna go outside the guide range today. It's a foregone conclusion in my mind. You know, I've done a lot of wrong in my life, and there's a lot of choices I'm not proud of that I've done. I regret the hurt I caused, and I feel the pain in my decisions every day. I hung out with Tiffany one time in 1999 when I stayed at my grandmother's. I've spent close to 20 years in prison since then. I was released in 2024 to Traverse City, and I met Tiffany when she drove up there with the Grayling Church to help with the homeless at the Pines. I've never sought out Tiffany. She asked me to move to Grayling. She asked me to marry her. I received permission from my parole agent, Grayling, John Haven, to move into her home. He went out, met with her, okayed the move into her home. She and I were married through a license obtained, approved, and filed with the Grayling Courthouse. She signed it on behalf of herself. Neither of us forged her guardian's signature. The marriage was posted on Facebook, and we never tried to be secretive about anything. I should have followed the PPO that the mother and the guardian, Tammy, placed on me. I was just confused because I never threatened, hit, committed any crime against her or her family. I didn't fully understand or agree that a controlling mother in the government should have this much control over both of us as adults. And I went about it wrong. Tiffany's in a guardianship because she's developmentally disabled. She has extremely low reading and writing and math scores and was in special ed. Tammy Camprath asked an expert in court her mental age. The expert replied that her range is 15 to 16 years old mentally. And then after that, Tammy goes on to state that she has the mind of a 13-year-old in a police report with John Capadlo, which is now part of my PSI, and that's just a false narrative. I have the court transcripts, it's documented. I know none of this looks great, you know, and this lady's never really liked me. She doesn't like my criminal history. But me and Tiffany have never been married at the age of 44 and 50. So I didn't really want to give up on my first wife at the first signs of problems. I know what it's like to be confused in a legal system with little to no understanding. I know what it's like to be judged by everybody every day for a past and that they don't understand. And I know what it's like to feel alone. I've been controlled. I've been made fun of. I'm still bullied by society to this day. I know what it's like to be used by others and under constant control. I've been in mental health all my life. I've been in special ed growing up at a very young age. I got my GED at the age of 26, you know, and I was taught never to give up. And I figured it was my job as Tiffany's husband to not give up on her at the first sign of problems. I thought, isn't it my duty as a man to look past her surface and support her mentally, spiritually, emotionally, financially, and to love my wife for better or worse, you know? I wholeheartedly believe that Tiffany was an adult when I first married her. She was trying to get pregnant with one of her prior boyfriends that lived with her. She went to the doctors alone, had her IUD removed. This is well documented in court. She's taken ovulation meds to increase her chances of pregnancy. She's lived on her own in her own home for the past 18 years. She votes. She gambles weekly. She smokes cigarettes. She smoked marijuana before me and still does. She has a driver's license. She drives. She drinks. She goes to the bars weekly with her on again, off again boyfriend, Roy Davis. Tiffany Bean told me that she's been in a relationship with Roy Davis for the past 20 plus years. Shortly after our annulment, they announced their engagement, plans to marry. Tammy Camper has known about the relationship the whole time, not only approves of it, but encourages it. So all this has led me to believe that Tiffany is an adult woman and left me very confused. Why is it okay for another man to marry Tiffany, but I got to go to prison for marrying Tiffany? Why is it a crime for me and not for him? Just because I have a prior criminal history, I'm poor, I'm an embarrassment to their family. I believe the law should be applied equally to everybody, not just me targeted because of my past. But going forward, I appealed this marriage because it's out of principle. I didn't agree legally, Your Honor. I thought I could be friends with Tiffany still, I don't have any hard feelings towards her. I don't blame her. I'm not mad at her. I don't want to hurt her, none of that. But going forward, I won't talk to Tiffany anymore. I won't talk to her family anymore. And if I offended anybody under the law, I should follow the PPO. I apologize, Your Honor. And I ask the court to look at this as a completely different situation from my past when considering my sentencing today. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gerber,
I just simply want to add, Judge, that this was a difficult case to litigate for both the people and the defense. And I just want to go through some of the background of it, as Ms. Cope indicated, with what our defense was and so on. We hired an expert in this matter. The opinion of the expert who testified in probate court and the expert we hired indicated that the complaining witness was at least in my mindset about 16 years of age. I think that's what Mr. Farron was alluding to, that it would be the age of consent, at least in his mind. I understand legally those defenses may or may not apply, but given that somebody who's been in prison, didn't get out in 2024, took the right steps by getting permission to move to Crawford County from Grand Traverse County, get his parole officer in Grand Traverse County, to have a courtesy parole officer here in Crawford County to go visit the home, then apply for a marriage license, get a marriage license. I think initially that's when Mr. Farron took those right steps. And at that time, there was no guardianship in place. But I think what Mr. Farron really screwed up was, as indicated, once the personal protection order was entered, once there were probate court proceedings, once there were proceedings regarding whether this individual was deemed as a disabled or developmentally disabled individual, and did that person have the consent? That should have been litigated by Mr. Farron in court, and he didn't do that. And I think that's where problems legally come. I've explained that to Mr. Farron, and I say all of this to make a record of it so Mr. Farron understands what some of the problems were. Certainly during our investigation, we were able to find that the complaining witness votes. She's voted in at least 2 elections that we know of. She drives. She can tender change and go to the bar, plays bingo. So we were able to at least, and I think when somebody of Mr. Farron's mindset, who's getting a GED at 26, who spent 20 years in prison, looks at all of this, I don't think the first thing they think is, well, is this person developmentally disabled or not? But I think what Mr. Farron really screwed up was once those decisions were made or were pending in the probate when this process has started, he should have taken a step back and realized, well, I need to stop legally and navigate the legal system rather than do what he did is violate those orders, not follow those orders. So there's problems on both sides. I think Mr. Farron, I don't want the court to get the impression Mr. Farron isn't taking accountability or responsibility, at least from what he's told me, is he's accountable and responsible for the actions after plea deal was entered, and he takes accountability for those actions. Prior to those, when the guardianship was not in place, prior to those, when he didn't have knowledge, he just didn't have knowledge of any wrongdoing under the law. I just wanted to put those things for the record. The court has a good idea of Mr. Farron's mindset of why we are where we are this week. The only last thing Mr. Farron wanted me to place on the record is, and I don't think the court has any authority in this, but he wanted me to place this for the record, that he wants to release his property that's held in jail to me, which I'm willing to accept that property be released. Or if the court has, or Ms. Stoke has, I mean, the court in this. Thank you.
And Tiffany has stuff of hers too.
Right, but we can address
Well, that
those.
she
That would
needs
be,
back
that would be something
belongings too.
that Ms. Cope will handle. Like your property, you want me to put on the record that it would be released to me, so I just wanted to put that on. Thank you.
all right, thank you. So, Mr. Farron, I did read through the pre-sentence report, so I'm familiar with all the information contained in that report. As I said, I read Mr. Gurmurthy's sentencing memorandum that gave a lot of background about you and your circumstances, as did the pre-sentence report. I also reviewed the statement, ma'am, that you submitted, and then I listened very carefully to what you had to say here today. I can sense the frustration, came through very clearly, much more so today in your statements here in court, and I'm glad that you came in and made those statements. I think it's important for everybody in the system to hear about that. So I appreciate you doing that. So I'm familiar with all the circumstances, Mr. Farron, and that there's so much about, I think, what you said here in court today that I think is just wrong, that I don't even know where to start in addressing the comments. I think overall, you know, as somebody who isn't developmentally disabled, as a mature adult yourself, it's on you. I don't care what orders are in place or not in place, to understand that this person is not in a position to be able to consent to the type of activity that you.
What about Roy Davis and other people? What about them?
They're not in front of me today.
They should be.
Are they?
They should be.
Are they?
Yeah,
No,
they should be.
That's okay. They're not here today, and if they are, I'll be telling them the exact same thing if they come in and tell me what you have told.
Okay.
I can promise
Will you
that.
give me the 40 months so I can get out of here, please?
No, it's my turn. I listened very carefully
Okay.
to you.
All right.
Did I interrupt you once? No, I listened to you. Now it's my turn to talk, and you need to hear it,
All right.
whether you want to or not.
Yeah.
You have a responsibility as somebody who isn't developmentally disabled, not to engage in this activity, for someone who clearly was not in a position to be able to consent to it. And in your opinion, I don't care what else is going on, fact is,
Yeah.
she wasn't legally able to consent, you knew it,
Roy Davis should go to prison.
and you continue to engage in that activity. And I think if I could give you a more harsh sentence, I absolutely would. Because
I know you
think
would.
Deserve it.
That's why I didn't go to
think
trial.
your actions absolutely warranted, whether you want to accept that or not. And if you're back again and you're found guilty of a similar offense, I think if you're somebody who's looking to take advantage of other people, you've done it many times. in the
Fuck
past,
you. You
and
take advantage of everybody every
and I
day.
think you
putting people
continue to
away.
do that here.
That's nowhere to be present.
So if the court is going to sentence you
To 40 months. Have a good day.
to 38 months,
Oh, thanks.
because I'm not going to create an appealable issue for 2 months. The court is going to sentence you to 38 months to 5 years in the Michigan Department of Corrections.
Yeah.
You have credit for 0 days served.
Of
because
course.
Parole status. That time is to be served consecutive to any
Dude, I gotta go to
sentence you
prison.
may receive for parole
I gotta go to
violation.
prison, dude.
The court is going to order a crime victim's assessment of $130, court costs of $325, attorney fees of $350.
Roy Davis needs to go to
A
prison.
DNA testing fee of $60 and $68 state costs, along with a $90 fee for HIV testing. You do have the ability to seek an appeal of the sentence. We'll provide you with those appellate rights.
We already executed those, Mr. Farron, acknowledged receipt of those appellate papers, Judge.
And you are remanded to the custody of the state.
Not right.
I would have wanted to do that.
He's trying to go to prison. I might be in prison.